Welcome to the Cloudless Mind podcast about neuroscience and non-duality. Introducing your hosts, Paul Smit and Scott Byrd.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Cloudless Mind podcast. We were starting this podcast while the memory card crashed, and we were talking about confidence. So the amount of confidence we now have in our apparatus has decreased slightly, I'm afraid. But we're 4 minutes in, so we're gonna restart the topic. We were talking about confidence. Scott, what are your first thoughts about confidence?
Where I'd love to start on this is from the position of a conversation that one of the very first conversations that we had together. I'd ask you what your opinion was about this guy that was up on stage that was being, he was obviously really confident in what he did and kind of looked pretty, dominating up there. He was, he was kind of walking the room, really like he owned it and all of that. But one of the things that you had talked a little bit about was, he's obviously got a lot of confidence, but there's something inauthentic about it that seemed to occur for you in that moment. So how does, when you look at someone that appears confident in the world, how do you process that?
Well, with confidence, I know all these trainings where people are being taught to become confident. Mm-hmm. My first question would be, who is it that wants to be confident?
Right.
So if we go instantly down the rabbit hole, you think of yourself as a separate entity, as a separate I. And of course, we all feel vulnerable because we are as human beings. So trying to be confident, this is quite hard. But you can't pretend to be confident, like this whole fake it till you make it stuff.
Right.
Because then the identification will become stronger and stronger. So you're just emphasizing your insecurity in that way.
Right. And that's really what we were talking about. What it seemed that you were speaking to in our first conversation around this was that this was actually a compensation mechanism that was actually making this individual's I bigger. He was feeding it through this fake, inauthentic confidence because he seemed to get results from it. There was something out in the world that seemed to get a reaction, but the question really that it led us down to, what's it like for the person in the audience? What's going on through the brain of someone that's in the audience that's watching someone like that? Give me a sense of how you would see that.
Well, to me, if you're not genuine and authentic on stage, I don't know how that works, but the audience sense that.
Right.
So if you try to fake something on stage, it's pretty hard, actually. So the only way I would describe confidence is once you've done something 1,000 times, then automatically your system starts to know, oh, wait a minute, if I do the show like this or the coaching like that, or for instance, if you're in sports with American football, if I play like this on the field, then automatically there is confidence that it will work.
Right.
But that's something that naturally arises by practicing it many times. But you cannot pretend. You can't start a coaching conversation telling yourself, okay, when the next CEO comes in, I'm going to be very confident.
Yes.
Because I'm going to sit like that, and I'm going to look like that, and then I'm going to ask these questions. So people feel that it's inauthentic.
Right. And it's that I that says I'm going to be confident, which already is reinforcing that I'm not. So that's where the inauthenticity is born in that moment, and then the inauthenticity builds because I'm simply building on a false construct. So really what we're talking about here is identifying where long-term sustained confidence doesn't live. And what I think would be most useful is how do we establish and what actually establishes long-term natural confidence, which would be more like a pure confidence that arises from intuition and something that you just said, which is a almost like a mechanistic or a machine-like behavior. So you and I have talked a lot about, in your world, when you've given thousands of talks. And
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I could tell with, Arno, he started doing my management. He has been the director of a company of 110 people. He won an award from Best Company of the Year and stuff. But then he starts to do my bookings. I can assure you that's way easier than selling cars.
Yes.
Or managing 110 people. But because he did it the first time, and he's really honest, he said, I'm so freaking insecure.
Yes.
I'm nervous, and I know this is a hot lead. People want you, and still I have to pick up the phone. And so there was no confidence. But what I like about him, he didn't try to fake it.
Yes.
He just said it on the phone. He said, well, you're the first one I call. I just started this new job. So I'm also trying to find out how this works. And people laughed at. The lady was like, oh, that's good. What did you do before? Well, I was the director at Audi. But because he was authentic, we got the deal.
Right.
But if he had tried to be confident, people would have felt it. And now when he has done it like for a couple of months, he is so confident because of the repetition.
That's right.
But it's not because he's pretending to be confident. It is because it's naturally there. And that's a big difference.
Yes. And what I would say is, and it's what I speak very, quite frequently about when I'm dealing with this thing called confidence is what happened with Arno, what happens with you and why you're so incredible on stage and the confidence comes through. What happens with anyone that has authentic, pure type confidence, it comes from systems.
Yes.
So essentially what's happened is a system was created because the way I express this is that, look, I can't be confident in me. I'm too variable. I've got to be confident in a system.
Yeah, that's
a system
so true.
Repeats.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be confident in another person. I want to be confident in the system in which that person reacts. that works within.
Yeah.
Because of the nature and the scatteredness and the distractive nature of the human mind, and also this allegiance to an I or a me, there's no real reason to have any confidence in an I or a me.
True.
It's probably the most skittish, the most fearful, all the things you would not want to count on are enclosed in this I or a me. And so in order for me to have true confidence, I can't have confidence in me. I have to have confidence in a system.
Yes.
So what you described is exactly what we're speaking about here. And this is when we employ our 11.2 million bits of processing power in our subconscious mind to ingrain certain systems, whether it's a system of thought, whether it's a system within a company or building a widget or whatever it is. So when we go straight to what creates authentic confidence in someone versus something that would be, look inauthentic or kind of icky or, pushy,
but you can feel with people sometimes. I see new people every day. Sometimes people come in with a certain attitude.
Yes.
And it's their whole gesture and the way they talk, and it's fake, it's acting.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, a bit painful.
So oftentimes what you'll see is, and I've discussed this often, is like you'll see someone up on a stage or you'll see someone that's got this like overbearing confidence, and it's, we'll talk about, look, there's a testosterone male who's just basically playing out the chemicals in his mind, in his brain. You can tell that someone's brain chemicals are at work at the point when they enter this type of behavior. We'll have this discussion quite often. When we see some, dominant or super confident male that's up there in that space.
But also the other side, people are, because defense mechanisms often are either becoming dominant and conflict seeking, and the other one is pleasing. So if you feel insecure, it's like, oh, if I am nice to you, if I do things you want me to do, then you will validate me, I'm good enough, so I will feel better about myself. And this is also the struggle in many relationships, that one over time becomes a bit dominant and the other becomes more pleasing, and then the struggle begins. And this is only with 2 people. And then imagine having a company with 500 people. And if we're not authentic and we're all pretending, and
Right.
sometimes I'm in companies and the culture has been established in a way that everyone is pretending. And I'm like, man, who are we fooling here?
Right, right. One of the things that I really love to discuss is this idea of creating systems of thought.
Yes.
So to give you a sense of, like, in my work, or give the listener a sense of my work, to me, the experience of being in my coaching practice is one of really complete confidence.
Yeah.
I have a confidence I could sit with the President of the United States. I can sit with anyone in the world.
Yeah.
Inside of the work that I do. And in many ways, if someone were to ask me why that would be the case, I wouldn't have an answer. But there's an innate understanding of a system of thought that I have that I approach the world with, which is really what you and I work on and speak about in our own Cloudless Mind work.
Yeah.
That gives me the confidence to sit in anywhere. But it was actually a system of thought that was worked on and refined and continues to be refined over time, but it produces something.
Yes. Yeah, I like what you say, that it's all about the systems. It's even due to your life experience, you automatically have some systems. So, for instance, if you feel a high in emotion at a certain point in your life, you just realize, just let it be, because I've seen this pattern over again. And the system is always, there's a high emotion, and within 2 days, it's gone totally. Within a week, I have forgotten about it completely. So I don't have to worry now, because I understand the system.
So just to be clear, because I think this is something that a lot of people deal with, what you're saying is your system of thought handles suffering differently than other people's system of thought. Meaning, most of the time when people think, when they're suffering, they actually, believe it or not, think the suffering is going to last for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
They're never going to, they're going to feel like this, they're going to feel like shit forever, even if it's just been going on for 15 minutes, right? Our brains, for some reason, is oriented around that.
Yeah, our brains always think that every emotion and feeling will last forever. And this is whenever we feel sad, we think it's going to be the end of everything. And whenever
I just might as well kill myself.
Yeah, and when we fall in love, we think it also will last forever. So, but
yes.
In both cases, I mean, if you are walking around on this planet long enough, you just realize, hey, wait a minute, this stuff comes and goes. I don't have to take it seriously. That makes
yeah. But that's a true system of thought, right? That's a different way of thinking.
Yes.
It's really important to see how you spoke about, because I think that's, a lot of people experience that, and they don't think of thought or training your mind to think in terms of a system is something that's available, but it's all that we do.
Yeah, so it's more wise to rely on systems, because they're more stable. Mm-hmm. Also, they come and go, of course, but it's more stable. It's like Warren Buffett says, I don't deal with emotions, I don't deal with ideas, I only deal with systems. And that's what you did at Wall Street.
Yeah.
And just by following the system, are not being taken away by every emotion or feeling and every drama instantly.
Absolutely.
And that goes for everything.
Well, it really does. I mean, and what you might even look at is that you already probably have a system of thought in place, or you do have them, but are they actually, well-oiled machines that produce an output that you want? You can have a car that's a system.
Yeah.
But if, it's got a lot of parts that haven't been looked at or haven't been actually tweaked, or, the oil hasn't been put in. So yes, you get some semblance of moving, but it's not near what's possible within a system, right? So what you and I are talking about is being able to, really in many cases, whether you're going to deconstruct a carburetor to have it work better within the system, I can deconstruct a thought. I mean, I just got off of a call with a CEO of a company before we got on this.
Yeah.
And our agreement at the end was this gentleman had fear around being a fraud. I mean, a very common idea. He's a very wealthy gentleman. He's risen to this level, and he doesn't feel like he's worth it. And it's really starting to get in the way of the next level, next thing that he wants to create.
Yeah.
So what we did was we created a possibility around creating a system to look at each of these thoughts. So the thought would go, all right, I'm going to deconstruct this thought, I am a fraud.
Yeah.
So our work is him creating his own possible system when this emotion or this feeling arises, that there's something in place to actually deal with that, and that will have him move forward and take a lot less time to be in that space than it used to. That's what he's looking for.
Yes.
Does that make sense there? How I described it?
So and it's the indirect way of liberation, which is totally fine, of course. So there are two ways. There's one, it's like giving the separate person something to do, to have a certain system or more insight.
Yes.
It could also be mindfulness or meditation or whatever.
Yes.
And then there's the direct way, which we call Advaita non-duality. And that is just going instantly down the rabbit hole, that there's not even an I who could be anything. But for most people, that this is a bridge too far. So that's why it's more popular in this world to have certain techniques to create a system.
Well,
which
right.
is totally fine.
Yeah, and I find that I always get to the rabbit hole with my clients. It may be years down the road, but there is a bridge that we build in our work, obviously, and I know you do it too in your talk. I mean, you don't go straight down the rabbit hole in the talk.
No. I slowly start, and then there's a small group that wants to go deeper, and with that group, I'll go deeper. But for the majority of people, they've been conditioned to truly believe in this separate I and to truly believe in their thoughts and opinions. So you cannot go too radical with this.
Right. And by the way, that's a system, right? If we were going to really look at that, you discovered through trial and error, through breaking it down.
Yes.
Because in the beginning, when if you give these talks or whatever, you would learn, wait a minute, I don't know if you were laughed off stage, but simply you learned over time the system, and it produces what it produced. You're the number one speaker in the Netherlands in what you do.
Yeah, although I really did it by trial and error, because I've made all the mistakes, and that's why making mistakes is so useful, because by making mistakes, you become more and more aware of the system.
Sure. But there was like an underlying knowing, I'm building this thing. So if you know that, you would want to see where your fault points are. You would want to see where the system doesn't work well.
Yeah.
You would want to know that that's how anything truly great gets built, is to be able to see things from that perspective.
And that is also what we talked about in the previous podcast. By not being identified, you're open-minded to anything. You dare to question all your opinions, even yourself, everything. So this means you can improve things easily because you're not attached to it. While a lot of people in companies are fully attached to what they do, this is my job, I'm identified with this job. And if they have to question whether everything is useful, it's challenging them and it scares them. So a lot of people say, I got 27 years of experience. No, they've got 1 year of experience, which they repeated 26 times.
That's right.
So, and that's for me another reason why to be open-minded is you are not afraid anymore to just look at your patterns or look at criticism or whatever.
Right. So what you're saying is that for those 26 years or something, you're essentially asleep. You weren't aware that you were actually working within some type of system.
Yeah.
You were just basically sleepwalking through the dream.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about is waking up within the dream, like being able to play this game of life at a different level, and it has a different flavor. And what we're saying is confidence actually has real usefulness in this dream.
Yes.
Yes. And it produces out there. It also, but what the confidence we're talking about is a natural, pure confidence, not one like I'll see sometimes with my son, my 19-year-old son. I can see him acting completely confident around all the stuff he might talk about, business, this, and I'm like, dude, you've been working for a month.
Yeah.
You've been working for 1 month, and you're acting like you could be the CEO of the next,
Yeah.
And I kind of, that's just a whole. By the way, that's a whole nother system.
True.
But when we're looking at what we're talking about today, I think it is useful to be able to examine what is your system of thought now, and could I create another one? And that's really what I do in all of my work, is to help people and train people to create a new system of thought. So, I'd love for you to end it today, since we're getting to the end here.
We talked about confidence, and once you see through the dream we live in, then it can automatically arise. And I think what you brought up, I like that. It's confidence comes from systems, not from fluctuous emotions and thoughts. And
that's it. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Again, you can find more about us at cloudlessmind.com or cloudlessmind.com.
Yes.
And subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll continue to create there. Paul and I'm going to Paul and I'll be working on some other videos here soon. I've got some other comedy ideas that can help our brains learn from a different fun space in the next several weeks.
Cool.
And yeah, it's great to talk to you, Paul. We'll talk soon.
Yes.